welcome back to another episode of the Agendas podcast. This might be a bit of a shorter one, but I kind of wanted to wrap up the off season. Start talking some Olympics, finish talking up some moves that we kind of missed before. I'm here with Ben. Ben, what's going on?
How we doing? Yeah, quiet week this week.
Yeah, kind of quiet. It's getting to that point where like the NFL isn't starting for another month or two, like even like the preseason, and like the NBA, the big moves kind of happen quickly. So, I want to talk some Olympics. I think the Olympics are interesting this year just because the USA finally was like, all right, we're sending our guys now. Like after we lost, I think it was last time. We're like, all right, let's send our real players now and like kick some butt. Um, but I think because of that, because the US is sending so many players, it's the starting lineup becomes interesting. Yeah, so I think because the players that the U.S. is sending this year for the Olympics, it becomes interesting who the starting lineup is. You have some of the older generation, and it kind of represents the NBA as a whole. You have some of the older generation with LeBron, Curry, and Durant, whose time kind of is coming to an end. But at the end of the day, they're still like the respected players, and the younger players look up to them and things like that. And they're still really good. Also, they're like all NBA caliber players. They're not like top five necessarily anymore at this point. But I think, they're still at the point where you can't just be like, okay, you're old, like sit on the bench and let Anthony Edwards and those guys start. Um, so, this I think it's going to be a decision to make for Steve Kerr. Then obviously you have to balance the egos, and you want to give the young players a shot, and all this stuff kind of works out. So I think it's interesting who's going to be the starting lineup. I think obviously you're going to have Curry at the point, right? I guess unless you could do LeBron at the point. I'll go through what I think the starting lineup should be, and then we'll break it down. I think it should be LeBron at the one, actually, Curry at the two, Durant at the three, Anthony Davis at the four, and then Embiid at the five. And I think you have to have Curry, LeBron, and KD in the lineup. I think they have to be starters, just because of their place in the league, and because they haven't completely fallen off yet. They're still really good players. You have to have them representing the country. Like I don't think you can replace them with like Tatum. Like even if you think Tatum's better than Durant at this point, which is it's a reasonable take. I don't necessarily agree with that, but it's a reasonable take. We're actually going to get into our top 15 players probably on the next podcast. Um, I think you got to have KD, LeBron, and Steph in there. And then I think LeBron at the one gives you flexibility to put Steph at the two and still have the two forwards of KD and AD together, which I think is going to be a nice combo, especially defensively, because they're really long and athletic. Because the two guard options is kind of like Anthony Edwards and Devin Booker, which are really good players, but I think Curry's just better at this point than those two guys. So I like having LeBron, Curry at the two, KD at the three. Then at the big man, obviously Embiid's going to start at center. He's clearly the best big man by far, and he's like a real big man. He's not like Anthony Davis, who's kind of like doesn't really like playing the five. He kind of just plays it when he has to. And then you got Anthony Davis in there, who's like long, he's flexible, he's athletic. Ben, do you agree with that starting lineup? I know you said you might have Kawhi in there, but what would your starting lineup look like?
Yeah, that sounds good to me. I mean, I don't know why you're nitpicking like Curry versus LeBron at the one or the two. Like, I don't know. I don't know what that does. But yeah, I mean, I think there's what to do. I mean, LeBron, like you're saying, LeBron, KD, and Curry are starting because they're not showing up if they're not starting. So they're starting. Just to touch on that point, also, this was a little while back now, but like LeBron was trying to make it like he recruited the big guns to come out. It's like, no, LeBron, they're coming because it's Team USA basketball, and this is the real year this year. I think
Yeah,
LeBron recruited.
I remember that he was trying to make it like a whole thing. Like I called Steph and KD up and I said, "Man, we gotta do it this year." Like, stop it, man, stop it. Agreed, 100%.
So that's just LeBron being LeBron. I mean, listen, we were talking.
Okay, all
They're
right. So
both playing on the court
this is a bigger conversation. Are you saying like forget the Olympics? If they're both healthy, you're taking Kawhi over LeBron right now?
today.
Yes, today.
Yes, without a doubt. LeBron, I don't
Wow.
really think impacts carrying.
I mean, neither is Kawhi, but I do agree LeBron's
Neither is
impact
Kawhi. We have more
in recent memory.
last year's playoffs. No?
No, that was 2 years ago. 2 years ago when he played Phoenix, he was the best player on the court for like 2 games, and then he got hurt. So like, if that's your proof based off
And when
one
was
game,
LeBron? When did LeBron carry anybody? When he got swept by the
LeBron
Nuggets,
seems
or when he got swept by the Nuggets?
I mean, they made a conference finals last year. Kawhi hasn't had a deep playoff run in forever. I mean, he just can't stay on the court. But the point is when they're both healthy. I honestly I think it's comparable when they're both healthy. It's not a crazy take to say when they're both healthy, Kawhi's better. I do think LeBron is better, and I do think it's probably pretty clear. Again, in terms of scoring, LeBron has just been scoring more, especially recently. I mean, partially that's due to Kawhi's injuries and stuff like that. But I mean, Kawhi's a better shooter, a three-point shooter, he's better mid-range shooter, he's better free throw shooter, he's better in the post. So you could say he's a better scorer. Defensively, they're both kind of at this point in the career. They pick their spots. Kawhi's probably a little bit better when he tries.
That's a terrible. I think.
I've seen him in his moments where he'll pick like a moment in a game. It's not much, but he'll pick a moment in the game. And then playmaking is obviously clearly LeBron because Kawhi is not a great playmaker. But I think it's definitely discussion. But because of the pedigree, like you're right, LeBron's definitely going to start, right? It's just like if you're saying in a vacuum, would I start Kawhi over LeBron? Now there is a world where you could start both of them and then like go small kind of either and like not have AD. Maybe you go Steph and then KD, LeBron, Kawhi, or Kawhi at the 2, KD, LeBron, Embiid, something like that. Again,
Well,
the
it
positional
wasn't really about. It wasn't what I was
yeah,
gonna say. What else I was gonna say is this could be a bit of a question. Davis could shoot.
well, yeah, I'm saying that's why I like LeBron at the point because LeBron that means LeBron's gonna have the ball in his hand, so it's not as important that he's a shooter. Then you got Steph and KD as great shooters, and Embiid's a plus shooter. Like he's a really good shooter. Like he's better than Anthony Davis as a shooter. He is. And then you have Anthony Davis who can like kind of shoot the mid range, and his three has kind of been hit or miss. But yeah, the spacing is kind of an issue, and you do have some players who can shoot better off the bench. Like you have Kawhi who's a better shooter off the bench, and Tatum would be a better shooter off the bench. Halliburton allegedly is a good shooter.
Oh, we got to get to Halliburton.
Well, let's do it right now because I don't have too much more to say on the starting lineup, unless you have something to throw in.
No, but we got to get to Halliburton.
We're getting to Halliburton. All right, let's start with Halliburton. Halliburton being on the Team USA team, it's egregious. First of all, I've been following like on Twitter like the Team USA and they'll like post like they'll show like the players coming in and like you see like LeBron and KD and Curry and Anthony Davis and Embiid and there's like Halliburton. It just ruins like the whole situation. It's like ew, like who is that guy? You know what I mean? And second of all, him being in over Trae Young is asinine. It is asinine. He had like a good year and a half. This whole second half of the year, he was absolute trash. And I get Trae Young's team doesn't win, but Trae Young would be like it feels much better on this team in my opinion. He's a better scorer. Now Halliburton, I know you're gonna see like I've seen the stats. Halliburton's slightly more efficient. It's like they show him efficiency, but one guy's averaging 6 more points a game. If I told Trae Young pick your spots, only average 20 points a game, he could be really, really, really efficient. But that's not how that works. You can't compare efficiency. One guy's scoring 6 more points a game. The assists are pretty much even. Trae's a little bit more turnover prone because he tries some crazier things, but I think Trae's a better passer. And I just, I just think it'll be a much better fit. I think players respect him more than Halliburton, which I don't know how much that really matters. But I mean, outside of that, Brunson definitely is over Halliburton in my opinion. He's just a better basketball player. I get Halliburton's team beat him in a series, okay, but Brunson, especially with this playoff run, he was really good. And then some of the other teams like Shea, I think is playing for Canada, or he's not playing. Luka's playing for Slovenia. Giannis obviously playing for Greece. So it's not like this is the top 15 players in the NBA, right? It's not like you can pick any single player. But of those players, especially those two options, Trae, definitely Brunson. I think Brunson's going to be less controversial. And then Trae Young, I think I would put him in there as well. But I know, what are your take, Ben? Because I know you feel strongly about this.
Well, but Harry though, Halliburton's taller though.
And?
Well, that makes him a better defender.
No, Halliburton is a worse defender than Trae Young. Statistically, look it up. It's just factually true. Trae Young ever gets killed. He has trash defense. First of all, he played a lot better this year. He actually put an effort, but obviously he's never going to be a plus defender. But Halliburton is worse objectively. Look at the numbers. Look at the defensive rating. He's a horrific defender. But Ben's right because the guy's taller and like he looks bigger, so he's like, oh, that guy's a better defender. Halliburton is one of the worst defenders in the NBA. Period.
Okay, I'll give a serious comment now. Yeah, I mean, Halliburton came over or like maybe a year and change, whatever. We'll see what happens next. I saw in the playoffs, he has zero half-court self-creation ability. Literally zero. Defender. I mean, Trae Young, because that's all conversation. I also am kind of excited for Trae Young. You know, we might be able to get him actually winning some playoff games this next season or two. But for sure, Jalen Brunson, right? That's much more universal. That is 100%. Jalen Brunson should 100% be over Halliburton. Or honestly, this.
Okay. All right, let's relax. Cooper Flag is egregious, honestly. although, what about Ja? I think Ja is better than Halliburton, but they're not going to play him because he's too controversial with everything. But I mean, the Grizzlies might be interesting this year coming up with Ja, but that's a different topic for a different day. But yeah, I think Halliburton's pretty egregious. And then the other thing I would talk
a pure 3 and D. I'd rather have Anunoby on the team if we're just building out a roster.
That's the other thing. Yeah,
What
if you're building
yards
out
do we
a
need? The whole
yeah,
the
you don't
whole
need
the whole team wants to handle the ball.
outside of Durant and Anthony Davis. But I think that's why the starting lineup makes sense because in the starting lineup you have LeBron who needs the ball, and then it's like Curry, AD, and KD who don't really need the ball, and then Embiid kind of needs the ball a lot, but he's also a big man. So I think that makes sense. But yeah, like you're saying, if you're building out a roster, if you're not saying like who's the best player, it still doesn't make sense because he needs the ball. And like Ben's saying, in terms of the half court, like the reason he's a 20-point a game scorer and not a 25-point a game scorer is because the Pacers, like, they get all their points from fast breaks. They just play fast, run up and down the court, and he'll get his points that way in transition. But, like, in terms of a half court, he's not really creating anything unless the other team is just not playing defense. Like, they had some games where they played the Hawks this year, the Pacers, and, like, it was, like, 150 to 155. It's like, okay, yeah, no one's playing defense. But, like, yeah, in the playoffs, in the half court setting, he just can't create.
But I
Um,
mean, to be fair, like that is what makes it his half court, not his half court, his transition passing. To be, you could see that pops on the screen. Like you see that. That's what special passer. Like you see that in transition. But I don't even see special passing in the half court. Like to me, transition passing is special for him, but every other element of his game is below average.
yeah, the shooting's interesting because he's been a good shooter for his career, for
Shooting,
most of his
maybe
career.
a good
The other thing is, like, in the Olympics, it's even like slower than NBA playoff basketball. Like, it's really slow, really half court oriented. So it's like doesn't fit his style of play at all. Not that I don't think he's gonna play that much. So we're probably overreacting to nothing. But it's just I think it's an interesting topic. The other thing I wanted to talk about was Anthony Edwards mentioned he's like, yeah, man, this is my team. I'm the star player. They got to fit around me. Like, all right, man. Like it's cute what you were doing. But after you get waxed in the conference finals in 5 games, maybe simmer down, especially when you're playing with some great players. Now he did like compliment KD and everything like that, but I mean it's also just talk. That's just how he is as a player. That's how he is as a person off the court. But I hope it's not like Anthony Edwards taking 25 shots a game. Like in the Olympics, it's like the ultimate team game. Like I think Kevin Durant led last time he was in the Olympics. He led the Olympics in scoring with like 20, 22 points, whatever it was. Like nothing major. You know what I'm saying? It's a team game when you're playing this many stars. It's all about fit. Especially with Steve Kerr coaching, he'll probably implement some good off-ball movement and things like that. But I just wanted to point that out. Not that necessarily means anything, because again, that's just how he talks. But that's just another thing to keep note of. Do you have anything else you wanted to add for the Olympics, or?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I'll just touch on that, and then I'll have one note at the end. But yeah, I mean, Anthony Edwards, like, you see the two-way player that you don't see with a lot of superstars. You see the flashes of it. I think he had some comments also at the end of when they got eliminated, where he's like said some comment where he thought he was good or whatever. It's like brings the consistency on both ends of the floor because I think there's like a potentially all-time player in there if the consistency comes, but it doesn't sound like it's coming. But we'll see. I hope it comes. And then the other thing is for whatever the next Olympics is, 2020.
Wait, Ben, your audio keeps like jumping in and out. I don't know if you're like moving or something. Like it's not bad, but it just keeps like you sound really close and you sound really far, and then you sound.
Oh, I'm not moving. Oh, it said. How about now? Is it okay now?
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good. It's continue. It's fine.
Okay. Yeah. And then the other thing, whenever the next Olympics is 2028 or whatever, I think Trae Young is a serious basketball player. The whole national media, and it seems like the NBA, based off his trade value, just considers him, in the star player role as a great player on a bad team, where potentially they value him as like a third option on a good team. I think Trae Young is a serious, like, competitive, tries to do the little things to win, like, really is a winning basketball player. Obviously, his defensive efficiency, but I'm saying, like, mentally, like, people treat him like he's a joke. And so, the Hawks seem to be building the right way. I hope that the Hawks can put it together over the next 3 or 4 seasons. And so, Trae Young for the next Olympic runs, that'll be, like, his last shot in his prime to go to the Olympics. I hope the their team success comes so that he can get that opportunity.
Yeah, and also some of these guys are going to age out. LeBron's going to age out. Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. You know what I'm saying? So it's going to be a different generation. So I think he'll definitely have a shot.
It could also get.
Next round.
This gets into where I just don't think the superstars today are as good as those 3 guys, Steph, KD, and LeBron in their prime. I don't think we have 3 players of prime those players caliber. The league is just worse right now at top end talent than it was, back, Cap.
Yeah, I mean definitely prime LeBron and Curry. Durant's prime too. Yeah, it's hard. They do have a lot of talent at the top. It's just you're saying like relative to the older generation's prime.
It's like this year's draft where there's no. If we were drafting prime players and we would just have a draft. Steph, KD, and LeBron. I mean, whatever. LeBron, Steph, and KD in that order would go 1, 2, and 3, and then anybody who's in the league now. Right?
I,
You know what
I
I'm saying?
I definitely agree with that. I think in like 10 years or so, people are going to start talking about like Luka, Giannis, Jokic, whatever it is. But I definitely agree with you.
Oh, Jokic to me is the only player I put seriously. Like he would be maybe get drafted over one of those two guys. Maybe over
Yeah, 100%. I don't even think Jokic is playing the Olympics this year. I know Giannis is, and I know Luka is. I think Luka got eliminated, so.
Oh, also,
Um,
yeah, you're saying Luka was playing for Slovenia. I was gonna chime in. He played for Slovenia. They got eliminated
yeah,
really quick.
they're eliminated. All right, well, it's fair, fair, fair. All right, let's move on to probably the last massive move of the offseason. Not even massive. I would say bigger move is DeMar DeRozan to the Kings. And, let's start with the Kings perspective, just so we don't get all over the place. The Kings, I don't hate the move. They didn't really give up anything just because DeMar didn't have a massive market and the Bulls wanted to get rid of him. And he does help them offensively. He gives them another half-court shot creator. Like, he's still really good at basketball, especially in the clutch. It feels like every time I watch DeMar DeRozan play basketball against my team or just in general, like every single mid-range jumper with under 2 minutes left is a swish. It's ridiculous. It's perfect for his play style. Those last couple minutes, like his bread and butter. Like slow the game down. He doesn't even necessarily need a pick. Get it slowly, work his way into that mid-range and just like shoot over the top. I think it's something the Kings could use, especially a young team, just like that veteran shot maker where if the game is close, they can give it to him. Now, Fox is pretty good in the clutch too, so we'll see how those things work together. I don't love the shooting side of it because Fox, I know he's improved as a shooter somewhat, but he's not a great shooter. And then DeMar just doesn't shoot threes. Like, he won't shoot threes. And then Sabonis also doesn't shoot threes, so it's like your three best players are not shooters. Obviously, you upgrade the talent level. Does it move the needle in the Western Conference? I don't think so. I think it probably locks them in as a playoff team. I think the team is going to have too much talent, barring major injuries, to not make the playoffs, even in a loaded West, to be one of those top 8 teams. Because it is a really good big three of Fox, Sabonis, and DeMar DeRozan. I have to see how they fit together, but in terms of talent-wise, and again, not having to give up much, I don't hate it. I mean, the Kings are kind of stuck in like an interesting position because they're not really talented enough to like compete with the top, like the Thunder, the Timberwolves, the Nuggets, those teams in the West. But they're also like, you can't just like rebuild because they have Fox and Sabonis, so they're kind of like just happy to be good because they haven't, they had that massive playoff drought and they beat it a couple years ago, and then this year obviously they just missed out. They made the play-in. I think they're just happy to be relevant. They have really good fans, and so from that perspective, it's like, what do you want them to do at this point? Like, it's not like they can get Paul George to Sacramento. The thing that was floating around was Lauri Markkanen. I think that would have been a much better move. Maybe that moves the needle a little bit more than this. But again, I guess that's still open because they didn't really have to give up much. I don't know what the cap space looks like exactly. But again, it's like what do you want them to do at this point? So they're adding talent, bringing another shot maker. They don't have their pick this year. I mean, potentially they have their pick this year. What has it been? Top 12 protected, I think you said.
I think so. Yeah.
The top 12 protected, or else it's going to go to the Hawks. So I think this locks in that they're probably not going to have their pick this year. But outside of that, I don't think it's a huge game-changing move. Ben, do you have any like major thoughts on DeMar DeRozan to the Kings?
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head where the Kings are in a tough spot. No, that's all I had to say. I just think the Kings are in a tough spot. I don't. Yeah. Where do they go from here? What move do they make to get to another level? I don't really know. Sure, add DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Jerry West said like the worst spot to be in the NBA is the middle because if you're in the bottom, right, then you get like the draft pick, and if you're at the top, like obviously you're at the top, and like the Kings are kind of stuck in the middle, and there's not much they can do. I guess the only other interesting thing is like where else DeMar could have gone. Maybe like people were saying the Hawks, maybe the Sixers at one point. But again, I don't think he's a needle mover at this point in his career. But he is a nice piece to add for that. Okay, let's move on to the next. This is kind of old news, but we didn't really get to it. We didn't cover it. That the next episode is Chris Paul to the Spurs. I think this is interesting. It's just a smart move for the Spurs. Get that veteran point guard in, someone who's not going to take shots away from Wemby, someone who knows how to play the game. I think your biggest takeaway last year, if you watched the Spurs play basketball, is just that they didn't have enough NBA players on the court that were like functional rotation players. And just to add Chris Paul, it's almost like the perfect piece. You don't want someone who's going to like a superstar who will take away shots from him, but just someone who can run the pick and roll, get him good looks, organize the team. I mean, Chris Paul, I forget the numbers. There was this graphic that like the past 5 or 6 teams he goes to, he just elevates them. The Rockets, the Thunder, the Clippers, obviously. He just makes them better than they were before. So does this make the Spurs a potential play-in team? I don't think so, but I think it could move them to like that 30, 35 win pace, and I think it could help Wemby's development. Ben, do you like Chris Paul to the Spurs? Do you not really care? It's not a needle mover for you, or what are your overall thoughts?
No, I love this. I love this move. I mean, I think I assume I said this on there. Spurs need to go the veteran point guard route, not a rookie point guard route in the game. Just all that veteran info and knowledge and dark arts and savvy, whatever word you want to use.
Dark arts.
But like just to develop / teach Wembanyama how to play in the NBA. Uber talent, random. He's just gonna Wembanyama's gonna learn, I think, so much from Chris Paul in terms of winning. And the Spurs have elected to basically take another year off where, yeah, they have NBA players now, so they're going to increase their win totals. No one's going to be mad that they're not moving forward. They're moving forward, but in a very, very, very conservative way. And it's basically just another year for Wembanyama to develop. I think it's a great move.
Yeah, I think it's smart, like you pointed out, the way they're choosing to do this. People are freaking out, like Wemby has to win this year. The Spurs have to use all their cap space and sign this and this player. Like, no, they don't. That's not how players develop, right? Like usually it takes a couple of years. Now, obviously, Wemby's a special talent, so he might be good enough just to get this team to 40 wins, and maybe they'll be in playing conversation. I wouldn't fall out of my chair because he was a lot better than I thought he would be. I wasn't super high on Wemby, especially compared to everyone else, and he was really, really, really good as a rookie, which is not normal. And usually year 2 and year 3 are some big jumping points. They did add also Harrison Barnes in that DeMar DeRozan trade just because it ended up being a 3-team trade. And I feel like they added somebody else, but now they just have some more NBA players. Wemby's going to take a big leap. And yeah, I'm happy that they didn't just like, okay, we have to use all our cap space. This draft, again, like Ben's talking about, is another big draft. So maybe they'll get a high pick in this one and then
They have the Hawks
pair that
pick
guy
also.
with. Yeah, they have the Hawks pick as well. That's a good point. Potentially could be a lottery pick. And they're just in a good spot, and they didn't panic. The only thing I didn't love is the trading Rob Dillingham. I guess they just didn't really like him in the draft. But that 8th pick, I would have, because they could use an influx of talent. We were talking about like the Thunder. They just have like too much talent, where it's like, do they need to add another rookie and another rookie and another rookie? No. But the Spurs are at a point where like, yeah, they can use just an influx of talent. So I would have liked to see them use that 8th overall pick as opposed to trading it, for something in 2031 where like who knows what's going to happen. That's the only thing I didn't love. But other than that, I think the Spurs have had a really good offseason. Quiet, solid, effective. And I think they're in good spot to, again, win like 30, 35 games, not be in that playing conversation, get another high draft pick, and, see where they are at next year.
Yeah, I mean,
The
back
other,
to the
yeah, go
Spurs
ahead.
thing. Just going to get added to the. You have to give up 8 picks to get a guy. So that's just going to go on the list of 8 picks, that 20, 31, whatever. So I don't think that pick's ever getting made. Also, you kind of roasted me for this being very picky as to which talent they add in next to Wembanyama. Like, I think they want very specific players, and if they didn't see that on the board, there's like, we don't want it.
What are your thoughts on Markkanen? That's been thrown around. Markkanen to the Spurs.
I mean, listen, I gotta be honest. I haven't watched a lot of Markkanen. I don't totally know about his game. I'm not sure.
He's like a stretch big. He can create his own shot. Solid defensively. Thing is, he's like 27, so he's on the not older side, but for the stage they're at now, not everyone has to be 22, but 27 is like, okay, by the time Wemby's like hitting his real prime, like Markkanen's going to be coming out of it. But again, I think they
That's
want to
not
be in this
bad.
year's draft.
Wembanyama, I think next year they're going to be trying to make the playoffs legitimately. So he'll be 28, and you'll have another 2-3 years after that when Wemby's going to be like, you don't have to get players who are going. I mean, we were talking about this with like Reed Shepherd to the Spurs. Where like I don't think you need players who are going to be with Wembanyama for the next 8 years. Like he's going to give you 3-4 years of high level market and level play. And then he'll start.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, my main takeaway is I think they want to be in this year's draft. So I think that'll be a solid move. I think Wemby's definitely a 5. So Markkanen will fit nicely at the 4 and Chris Paul, but I think it's a good solid offseason for them.
Yeah, and these big players, like we had this conversation with kind of Alex Sarr, and these players who can at giant size who can self-create and shoot. That's most valuable at the 5, and then the 4 that gets less valuable and like on the offensive end, right? Because 4s can shoot just generally more, and the smaller you go, the less valuable those basic skills get. So if you can keep Wembanyama at the 5, those skills on the offensive side just become that much more valuable.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's that rare 5 who can defend the 5. Obviously, defensive player of the year, runner-up, I think, and shoot the 3 ball. I think it's going to come. The next thing I wanted to talk about was the contracts, some rookie extension contracts. I think these are interesting. Scotty Barnes and Franz Wagner got 5 years, 225. I know some places said 270, but I think that's if they make an All NBA team or an All Defensive team or something like that. So the real contract is 225. When I saw these contracts, I fell out of my chair. I mean, I fell out of my chair. Scotty Barnes and Franz Wagner are like, they're nice players, right? They're cute players, as I would say, you know. Maybe they're borderline all-stars in Scotty Barnes' case. I think Scotty Barnes has a much better, outlook for this contract. Like, it makes more sense for him than Franz Wagner, who just was a disaster in last year's playoffs, and the reason they lost in round one, he just forgot how to shoot last season. Um, I think Scotty Barnes has shown that potential that, if he takes another leap, which I'm not sure he can take, but maybe he can be like that 25, 6 and 6 guy, something like that. Where it's like this contract won't be egregious. Again, also the salary cap's going up, so you have to keep that in mind. It's going to be like 25% of the cap going forward. But again, also they didn't have to do it this year. Like, I don't know how familiar people are with how these contracts work. We're a little bit more familiar because Jalen Johnson for the Hawks is going to come up soon. And they don't have to do it this year. You can wait another year. Usually the players that they do a year early are like the no doubters, like Tatum, Trae Young, Paolo will get his a year early, right? If he didn't get his already. Donovan Mitchell, players like that who are just like, you're definitely going to pay them. So you'll just get it done early out of respect, right? Just, clear things up. Maxey was interesting with the Sixers because they were definitely going to do it, but they waited a year to keep the cap space open, which allowed them to sign Paul George and then still give Maxey the extension. But if they would have extended Maxey last offseason, they wouldn't have had the money for Paul George. So it's interesting how that works out. But what do you make of these two teams taking these two players in Scotty Barnes and Franz Wagner, who, are not total slam dunk, going to be like all-star, all-NBA level players, and paying them early? And what impact do you think that has on, some other players, specifically Jalen Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, like you mentioned, you have to look at these contracts as percentage of the cap, not number. Look at your, whatever, the Jaylen Brown, and these contracts come in at like 40. So it's whatever, max is a word that means different stuff depending on the scenario. Yeah, I mean, basically, if you could either extend now where you can wait a year and then they're a restricted free agent next year, and basically you can match any offer that comes in. So you're just basically risking having to give like a full. You got to get a discount if you're going to be giving out a contract now. Meaning if the guy's a no-brainer match, like you're saying. So yeah, I mean when it comes to Jalen Johnson, like Jalen Johnson, like as a Hawks fan, superstar, he shows all these flashes, this and that, athleticism, but like. Okay, but now it's time to pay him $40 million. Do we actually think he's a legit, for him, I would wait the extra year and so we'll just match whatever max offer he gets and do that. Players seem like players if they weren't going to take a big probably could have just waited to that level contract.
Yeah, I think they're on a similar, like, plane to Jalen Johnson, kind of, where it's like, especially Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes, I see the potential for, like, he could become that, like, all-star, consistent all-star every year. And he's a forward. He can play defense. He can pass. He can, he's improving, and I could see the vision. Franz Wagner is like a nice player. Like, if they would have signed him for $100 million, I would have been like, all right, that's a fair contract. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's where I have him. I guess the Magic obviously think much higher.
Well, that's like John Collins was on a $25 million contract 4 years ago. DeAndre Hunter is on slightly overpaid, and no one likes DeAndre Hunter.
Right, I guess like 5 for 150 in today's money would be more what I'm thinking about. But he has to be able to shoot. If he doesn't shoot, his contract's gonna be a disaster. And the other thing with the Magic is I think they had a lot of potential to like build something next to Paolo and like to like lock in that like our guy's gonna be Franz and Paolo. It's like they just really believe in him. That's what it is. But again, if these are the contracts, that's what it's gonna be. And it's like Jalen Johnson for the Hawks, right? If he's gonna say, I'm taking the max or don't pay me, like I think they should just wait a year. Because if they wait a year, next year they're going to have $30 million in cap space, and then they can sign him after if he pops off. If not, they can look at moving him, whatever it is, right? But I think if Jalen Johnson is going to take a discount, sign him now. If not, wait. And again, that's kind of the advantage of most contracts when they sign early, it's because they're getting a discount. If they're going to pay the full amount, then there's no point. You may as well just wait till the last second and see if you can get a deal done. Was there anything else you had to add on those two contracts or in general?
Yeah, I mean, these contracts just feels like...
Yeah, you're like locking yourselves into mid, as the kids would say. And the other thing with the Raptors is they signed Emmanuel quickly to a fat contract too. So it's like you're basically saying we're locking our future into Emmanuel Quickley and Scotty Barnes, which sounds disgusting. You know what I'm saying? If you look at each contract individually, it's like not as bad, but then like you look at it, it's like, where are we going with Emmanuel Quickley and Scotty Barnes? Nowhere. That's the answer. Literally
For
nowhere.
sure. And then this leads you to the opposite questions. Like, okay, so this is what they're worth. They're just worth this amount of money. Someone's going to pay that. Do you just lock yourself into mid, or do you trade them for 7 first-round picks and start over until you maybe in one of the number one? Like, that's a tough call.
Yeah,
That's a long road.
yeah, but the Magic have that number one. That's what they have Paolo, right? They didn't have to do this. If I'm them, I'm leaving Paolo. Let's give another year to Franz Wagner. If he can figure out how to shoot, maybe we'll talk about it. If not, you could trade Franz Wagner for a haul. I don't know about 7 first-round picks, but you could trade him for a haul. As far as the Raptors, like you need an identity. You need a face of the franchise. So Scotty Barnes, I'm not even as mad at because I think they could still trade the contract tomorrow if they had to, right? I mean, obviously legally you probably can't, right? But to lock into, I think it's the pairing, right, of Barnes and Quickly and Paulo and Franz Wagner. It's like, what are you locking yourself into? Especially if I'm the Magic, I would have left it open. I would have definitely waited another year, um, see what happens, see how far you can go next year. Next year, can you make a competitive second round? Things like that. Are you taking the right steps? Because I think Paulo is that guy. Is he going to be the number one player on a champion? That's a whole different level. But I think that number one you have in Paulo, which is why you didn't have to
Is it
do
a
with
whole different
Franz, and I
level?
think it was a mistake.
Is it a whole different level?
I mean, can he get to the Tatum level? Can you see Powell getting to the Tatum level? I could see it. I don't think it's a
What, shooting
guarantee, but I could see it.
37% from the field in the finals? Yeah, I think so. I think you get to that level.
Well, there's steps before the finals, but again, the NBA champion is not the finals. That's the whole series. Tatum was like 26, 11, and 5 going up to the finals, right? So that matters too.
No, for sure.
But again, also they had a really good team and things like that. But I think Paul's gonna have to learn how to shoot. But he has when you watch him, it's like, okay, this guy's the real deal. Like some guys like, all right, this guy's cute, and Scotty Barnes for me is kind of like on the edge. Is he like cute or is he like that guy? You know what I mean? So I guess we'll find out. But I think
He's
the
in
Magic made a
Tyrese.
mistake.
He's in Tyrese Maxey level.
I think no, I think Tyrese Maxey. Yeah, I mean Tyrese Maxey. I still kind of have that feeling, but I lean more towards like he's that guy, more towards there. On a scale of, let's say, I guess Anthony Edwards, who was the bottom? Who let's say who would be a good example of like a bottom player who like you're definitely not paying.
You're definitely not paying.
On a scale of Franz Wagner
Like
to Anthony Edwards,
ball on Hornets.
on a scale of Franz Wagner to Anthony Edwards, Maxey is closer to the Anthony Edwards side, in my opinion. And Scotty Barnes is like in the middle. But we'll see. We'll find out. I think they made a mistake though. The last thing I wanted to touch on quickly was the Lakers. The Lakers haven't really done anything this offseason. Allegedly, they're trying to go after all these players: DeRozan, Valanciunas, Paul George. Name all the players. They're all rumored to be in. LeBron was allegedly going to take a pay cut, allegedly, which he'll never do.
He took a $3 million pay cut.
He took a $3 million pay cut, so there you go. But I think it's just a very disappointing offseason for the Lakers. Not that I don't know if there's anything they could have done to be a contender outside of maybe trade for Trae Young or a Paul George type of player. If you're not getting that level of player, then you're probably not moving the needle with a DeMar DeRozan or anything like that. But at this point, once you're committing to, we're not rebuilding, we're not going to trade Anthony Davis, we're going to go for it with LeBron and AD, then like at that point, just add as much talent as you can. You know what I'm saying? Like once you're committing to that mindset of this is what we're going to be, then commit to that. I had some talent, and I think they tried to. I think they just failed. Nobody wants to be the third star for that team because you're going to take all the blame when you lose, and you're not going to get any of the credit when you win. So I just think people were not interested in being that guy and playing with LeBron James at this point in his career. And obviously in his prime, it's different. More players wanted to play with him. But at this point, I just think, and nobody wants to be part of that circus. I think people looked, especially Klay Thompson, looked at J.J. Redick and thought that's a joke. I think Klay Thompson views himself as smarter and a better basketball player than J.J. Redick, and he's right. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, how could you respect that guy as your coach? And nobody talked about that. I think that was a factor in Klay Thompson choosing Dallas over the Lakers. So I think LeBron getting older, not wanting to be the scapegoat, and J.J. Redick is a combination for players just not wanting to be there. Do you agree with that assessment, or is there another factor that just nobody wanted to be there?
Yeah, I know. Really if you're trying to compete for a championship, I would pick the Mavericks over the Lakers. Just forget the off the court stuff, just on the court. Meaning now I would pick Dallas for sure. This goes kind of back to my Kawhi LeBron thing. I don't think LeBron is impacting, even for one game, like winning basketball games in the playoffs. Like, he'll put up some stats. It's like, okay, but I don't know. Like, yeah.
He had some moments. He had some moments 2 years ago up until the conference finals. They just can't beat Denver. They're not that level of team. But it's also like the Lakers fans' delusion the past couple years, where they just think if you just throw some mediocre role player with 2 first-round picks, you can get a star player, and that's not how it works.
Oh, for
And
sure.
they didn't really have cap space for the DeMar DeRozan. Maybe they could have used like the mid-level exception. Unless LeBron was taking a massive pay cut, or they were doing some type of sign and trade. But again, they don't really have the assets. They have 3 firsts they can cobble together. But again, who are you really trading that for? Klay Thompson was just an outright signing. DeMar DeRozan, they could have maybe gotten the assets for him if LeBron was taking a cut or if he would have signed for the mid-level. But again, DeMar got a 3-year, like $80 million extension, right? Like, he got a real contract that the Lakers can't afford right now. And I'm not mad at them necessarily not going for DeMar DeRozan because I don't think it's a massive needle mover. But again, I just don't think they have what it takes. Now, if they cobbled together all their assets, could they have gotten DeJounte Murray after what the Hawks got? If they cobbled 3 first-round picks together, plus Austin Reeves? Depends what you think of Dyson Daniels, I guess.
Austin Reeves? I mean, Austin Reeves would just get retraded because the Hawks have no need for that. Like, it'll basically be a 3-team trade. Hawks have no... So, it would have to be 4 first-round picks because I think the Hawks basically look at it, we got 3 first-round picks.
Yeah.
And we really like Dyson Daniels. Like, that's... Like, we got 3 picks, and one of them is basically a guaranteed top 10 pick in Dyson Daniels. Like, that level of... To deal with the hassle of moving...
Yeah, I mean... Austin Reeves last year, everyone's like, oh, he's going to get some massive contract extension, and he didn't. I mean, he's a nice player. I view him as like a 6th man, like a nice 6th man off the bench. But how much value does that have?
What are we talking about? There is 30 Austin Reeves, maybe not 30. There is 20.
Exactly. Like, Malik Monk is significantly better than Austin Reeves, but like nobody cares because he's on the Kings.
Right. I mean, I think the Lakers, as a franchise, and this kind of goes into the JJ Redick hire. Obviously, LeBron's involved in this, but I think the Lakers as a franchise are ready to just start with young players and develop and be a normal franchise and just get assets and build up young players and build up again. They were very successful doing that, 5 years ago. And I think they're ready to do that again, and they're just kind of waiting for this circus show of LeBron to move on. They'll trade AD and they'll go with JJ Redick as a developmental head coach with whatever assets they have left and whatever they can get back for AD. And so I think the Lakers franchise is very much looking forward to in a year or two.
Yeah, I agree with you. I saw something thrown out by Bill Simmons that like they should have traded Paul George for LeBron. That's an interesting throw. Not that it would ever happen realistically, but like the Clippers getting LeBron, they got all the hype, and like the Lakers getting someone a bit younger to like compare with AD and see if they can like build something in the future, because LeBron just takes over the whole franchise in a good way when he's winning, but at this point in his career, it's just he's not that level of player. So I think they should trade AD, but they just won't, so they're kind of stuck where they are at this point.
Yeah, I mean LeBron too.
Yeah, 100%. I think we'll wrap it up there. Next episode, we're gonna do a top 15. We're gonna, some players might be higher or lower than you think. Maybe we'll get into where LeBron ranks if he's in that top 15.
Stay tuned for Kawhi to be over LeBron.
There you go. A little teaser there. But yeah, we'll get into that one.
Is it when healthy?
I mean, it's when healthy within reason, I would say.
I don't know what that means.
I guess it's when healthy.
We'll have to make some rules.
We'll have to make some rules, but stay tuned for that one.
We're doing tiers, by the way. This is not just a...
Yeah, we'll do tiers. Some of those
gaps are big.
Yeah, 100%. Listen, the freedom is up to you, but that's what we'll get into on the next one. But thank you guys for listening, those of us who listened, and don't forget to follow us on TikTok, YouTube, Twitter at The Agendas Pod, or TikTok I think is at Agendas Pod, and we'll catch you guys in the next one.